Hi everybody, this is your friend Bruce presenting you with an awesome connection presentation for the Baroque unit of our AP Art History class. By the time you see this video, this is probably around 10:30 p.m. here in Shanghai, China. However, it does not affect the quality of this presentation as everything is online. So, without further ado, let's jump straight into our first art piece of the day that we're going to look at, the Palace of Versailles. When you think of a fancy European palace in the Baroque period, these images of extravagant rooms with golden decors filled to the ceiling will probably appear in your mind. Well, you are partly true, as most part of the Palace of Versailles does look like this. However, all these wonder of beauty and architecture started with a humble lake cabin. The area where the Palace of Versailles located was originally a forest and swamp wasteland. In 1624, French King Louis XIII bought 117 French acres of wasteland for 10,000 livres, the French currency at the time, and built a two-story red brick building there as a hunting place. On the second floor, there are rooms such as the king's office, dormitory, reception room, wardrobe, and entourage bedroom. And the first floor is the furniture storage room and weapons storehouse. At that time, the palace only had 26 rooms, whereas now it has 2,300 rooms, 67 stairs, and 5,210 pieces of furniture. It remained to be the court of French palace for 107 years. On October 6, 1789, Louis XVI, the king who sure doesn't love guillotine, was taken into Paris by the people, and the history of the Palace of Versailles as a royal palace ended. During the horrific period of French Revolution that followed, the Palace of Versailles was washed and looted many times by the rioters. The furnitures, murals, tapestries, chandeliers, and furnishings in the palace were pillaged, and the doors and windows of the palace were smashed and demolished. In 1793, all the remaining artworks and furniture in the palace were shipped to the Louvre. After that, the Palace of Versailles was reduced to ruins for 40 years. It was not until 1833 that King Louis Philippe of the Orleans dynasty ordered the restoration of the Palace of Versailles and turned it into a museum of history. Now, enough on the boring history, let's talk more about the artistic aspect of the Palace of Versailles. I'm sure this is what we, art historians, truly love, right? The Palace of Versailles is a classicist style building, and the facade is treated in the standard classicist three-stage processes. The facade is divided into vertical and horizontal sections. We can easily see the influence from the classical Greek architecture with these Doric columns and the rectangular frieze above. The building is symmetrical, with neat outlines giving its viewers a sense of solemnness and majestic feeling. Therefore, the Palace of Versailles is also known as the representative of rational beauty. The interior decoration is mainly Baroque style, and a few halls are in Rococo style. Here is a floor plan of the entire palace. The palace is 580 meters long. As a whole, it consists of a French garden, a magnificent castle, and a mirror hall. The interior Baroque furnishings and decorations of the palace are treasures of the world art palaces. Countless large and small halls in the palace are beautifully decorated, and every piece of decor is magnificent. The colorful marble walls are dazzling, the giant crystal lamps pouring down like a waterfall, the oil paintings on the inner walls in the palace domes seem to tell with the magnificent military exploits of the former kings, the mythological heroes, and the history of France. To the west of the palace is a well-maintained French-style park. The park stretches for 3 kilometers. The scenery in the garden is great with its flowers, the grass, the water, and the pools. In front of the main palace is a unique French-style large garden. The surrounding gardens of the building complex are also world famous. It has a completely different style from the classical Chinese royal gardens. It is completely artificially carved with extreme attention to the symmetry and geometric graphics. Speaking Speaking of Chinese royal garden, that brings us to the second art piece of today's presentation, the Forbidden City of China. Similar to the Palace of Versailles, let's first look at its historical context and then review its aesthetic aspect. The Forbidden City was the imperial palace in China for almost 500 years, from 1421 to 1912. It is also the largest complete palace complex in the world. It was built when the Third Ming Emperor moved the capital north to Beijing, and the construction itself took place from 1406 to 1420. It took a large amount of huge labor force to complete the construction. Approximately 100,000 craftsmen and 1 million laborers were estimated in the total construction. Therefore, it is home to 24 emperors from Ming to Qing dynasty, and the palace itself is estimated to cover over 170 acres of land. The perimeter wall of the palace is estimated to be 6 miles long when combined, and the palace is claimed to have more than 9,999 rooms in total. Now, here is the floor plan of the entire palace. Let's first look at the layout of the palace. The new city of Beijing was laid out with an 8 kilometers long north to south axis running exactly through the center of the palace. The axis extends to the city wall gates. The most important buildings of the palace are placed on the axis. The other buildings and bridges and gardens are arranged symmetrically on either side. The main gate of the palace is on the south, and the north end is another gate that is protected by an artificial hill made of piled up rubbles of the earlier Mongol palace. The entire layout of the palace is modeled after a small model of the entire cosmos, according to the Chinese tradition. Walking through the south front gate, the first complex that we see is what we call the outer court, or the outer palace. This is where all the official ceremonies and appearances of the emperor took place. The first building that we see in this outer complex is the Hall of Supreme Harmony that we are going to talk about later. It is the most spectacular building in Forbidden City. The throne of the emperor is at the exact center of the city in the north-south axis that we talked about earlier. Most of the important ceremonies done here, with the vast courtyard in the front that could hold more than 50,000 courtiers, all kowtowing to the emperor. The second and the third building is where the emperor exercises rule over the state, and basically the place where he works. Nowadays, as Communist Party took over to China, on the very front gate on the south end of the Forbidden City, we can see a huge portrait of Communist leader Mao Zedong, the founder of the Communist China. Now let's talk more about the Hall of Supreme Harmony. As what we have mentioned before, it is the first palace building that we'll see in the entire outer palace complex. Therefore, it is the building that is most decorated with the lavish ornamentation inside and out, with the imperial symbol of dragons everywhere. It has a double-hip garbled roof just like that of Hong Taiji, and all Forbidden City buildings have yellow tile roof as a way to symbolize the dignity of the emperor and the imperial family, because only imperial family in China were allowed to use yellow or the yellow tiles. The palace itself sits on a high platform, and it has a rectangular wooden wall. The red columns that we see here doesn't actually function as a supporting weight. However, it is a way to separate outside from the inside and rooms from rooms. The palace itself has a curved roofs and a broadly overarching eaves. It has a multicolored inside and outside. The wall and columns are in red. The ceilings, beams, and eaves are all colored in bright golden yellow, and the framework of the vertical and horizontal columns and beams fit together with the interlocking brackets. There's no need for mortars or glues to stick them together. The reason behind so much details and cares are spent and and infused into this piece of architecture is because in Chinese tradition, the emperor or the royal family is thought as divine, and the emperor himself is thought to be the son of heaven. As the son of heaven, the emperor's most important duty was to keep the balance between heaven and earth. To help him achieve such duty, the Forbidden City was designed in such that it models behind a small model of the entire cosmos. Therefore, every single piece of this palace was treated with great amount of details and effort.